I am extremely late to the party when it came to watching Arcane, but after finally getting around to it, man, I don't really care for League of Legends like that, but the show was really good. There were so many inspiring scenes that I wanted to make artwork of in this show, but I just had to settle on one, which was the Vi and the Jayce fight scene. On screen now, all the warm-up sketches I did, just to get a feel for the characters. I had to do a lot of rewatching of scenes, looking at character sheets like this on the screen now. This spray paint was a really painful journey. I'll be explaining the story during the time lapse, and let's just say I was so close to giving up on this. So before I really get to telling the story, I still want to obviously explain to you guys my process and what I'm doing during the time lapse. So here you could see me figuring out the composition, being super loose with the rough sketch, and of course I was looking back and forth at my references of the warm-up sketches and the character designs and so on. Here it's a bit weird. I actually start working on the face details super precisely even during the rough sketches, which was technically something I shouldn't have done, but I just really didn't want to mess up the face, and I wanted to use the rough sketch face to really explore and experiment how the facial features could look. And I really didn't have a problem with Vi's face in particular. It was mostly Jayce's face, because to me his face is very like default man character look. Yeah, for some reason I struggled a lot with it. Here we move on to the bold line work. This was basically my way of styling it and really just make it a lot easier than I did beforehand. That's basically part of the story that I'm going to tell coming up. As this bold outline stage kind of plays out, I can start telling the story. The spray paint you're seeing here is actually the third attempt. So straight after I really got all the sketches and references and warm-ups done, I kind of dove headfirst into spray painting it without any prior plan to how I was supposed to execute it in-game. Because on paper it was just super loose, I was super comfortable with it, but this game is basically its own like art medium, I guess. I was approaching it in a really odd way, almost like a traditional painting, like layering it up. I got pretty far into it, like the coloring and the shading and whatnot. I just had to add the hammer and the faces. So you know what, I could step back, take a break from it. Before I did that, I click save, I closed down the game itself, and I go off to do something else to just take a break, because I was sitting at the computer for a bit and working on the piece itself for a while. So I eat something and I come back, reopen the private server, and usually when I join in on the menus and like dismiss the warnings and stuff like the usual, I spawn in, look at the paint counter. Hopefully it's not 0. I thought the paint counter will go up by 0 by now. I was really confused because surely I saved it, but apparently not. And that's basically how the first attempt perished. And the second attempt was more close to what you're seeing on screen now. And I was super close, I was super happy. There was more of an approach. I had this similar outline technique. I got really far into it. All I really had to do was add the facial features, render out the lighting and render out the clothing and whatnot, just a tiny bit more. And you know what, I left it. Again, thinking surely it would save this time. I guess this is a lesson I learned. If you do plan on saving a work, it's usually that blue button on the top right, and if you do click it, wait for the ... symbol to disappear and come back as a normal save button. Because guess what, I closed the game down while it's still, I guess, in the middle of saving, and again I lost the whole thing. I got so far twice in a row now, and I was just like, I'm done with this. I don't want to do this anymore. You guys gonna have to wait another month for another video, but I was like, no, I want to get this right. And that leads us to what you're seeing right now, the third attempt. There were a lot of factors that weren't in my control, like buggy saving, and I guess it was this necessary evil because it forced me to truly refine and rethink my process when it came to making this piece. And just a little bonus, after this time lapse and after the b-roll, I will actually show the footage of my previous lost saves, and since I managed to get them recording, since I had to record the time lapse, I had to record them, I will just show like little snippets of those 2 that I lost at the end, so you could just see like what they could have looked like. So stick around to the very end. And that leads us back to the process explanations. So we just made it to the base colors. I know they want 1000% the same color palette, but looking at the reference was enough to get a big idea because the character designs weren't that complex. I'm really into that kind of character design, keeping the clothing simple, not too many shapes happening. Now we finally get to the beginning stages of the rendering, and it's just super satisfying to see all these like clothings and armor pieces like come to life with more depth and really give them more of a dimension. I'm not sure why I said come to life, but yeah, just giving it that dimension, that believability in that there's a shape and form to these objects and clothing, etc. From here on out, there's going to be a lot of satisfying rendering, and I'll just leave you guys to enjoy it. So as promised during the story time, during the time lapse, here are the snippets of attempts 1 and 2, the lost saves. So I don't know if you could see what I mean here by me approaching it like a traditional painting. You can see how I render it in a weird way, like using it like real paint for some reason, even though I knew I had the freedom to adjust layers and move layers around. And here the second one, you can see that I was actually getting somewhere because that first attempt taught me to actually, you know what, sit down and plan. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out the playlist now if you want to see more, and I will see you all next time.